And greetings, happy Friday. Thanks for tuning in here today, live and on demand here on BlazeTV, radio and podcast. Steve Deace with Todders and Aaron McIntyre. Our good friend Chris Pandolfo is here. He's going to be joining us for the Deace Group in just a moment. If you would like to join us, let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. That's steve at stevedeace.com. That's how you can email the show. DEACE, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Steve Deace Show, over on Parler at Steve Deace. And then check out our YouTube channel today at youtube.com/Steve Deace. That's where we post things that will likely then, in a matter of moments, be demonetized because they are unfortunately true. What's coming your way here? Just calling it like it is. Also, December the 15th is a big day around here. That's when my new book, the novella sequel to A Nefarious Plot, is released nationwide. You can get your pre-order today at Amazon.com. It's called A Nefarious Carol, and it is dropping on December the 15th. Go there, get your pre-order today. Thanks to the multitude of you. Our pre-sales are looking really good for the book, so thank you very much. Let's keep that going. You guys have been asking me, are we doing an audio version of the book? We are. And I'm going to keep this to myself for now, but I'm reading the audio version of the book with a special guest. I'm not going to be reading the part of the female lead. I'm going to be reading it with a special guest. And so, yes, there will be an audio version of The Nefarious Carol as well. So pre-orders today at Amazon.com for a December the 15th release. Also, want to mention one of our new sponsors here, one of my favorite products. Even before they came on board, I was spending out of my own pocket for Built Bar. Dude, it's a life-changing product. Straight up, like a TiVo, something like that. It's the kind of thing that once you try it, you're going to think, how come I just now learned about this? I know. I bought a box just because I was so skeptical of how a college football podcaster I listened to was pimping the heck out of this stuff. And I'm like, it cannot be that good. So I bought it, tried it, because there's really only one protein bar I like the taste of, and then can also digest. That's the thing. It's not, usually you can digest them but don't like the taste, or you like the taste but then you can't digest them well. So I've got one, and then there's only one flavor of that one. And as much as I love chocolate chip cookie dough, it gets really old eating the same flavor over and over again, right? So I listened to this podcast. I've been on the hunt for something I could digest that wasn't loaded with sugar, that tastes good. And I'm like, this can never happen. I heard this talk show host raving about it, and I thought, no way. So out of spite, I used his promo code and ordered some. Holy cow. I then went on and bought like 2 more boxes. I'm on my 5th box from these guys, or 5th or 6th that I bought in just the last few months. And now, lo and behold, they're on board. They taste great. How many? 18 different flavors, all covered in chocolate. I've got with me today chocolate covered apple crisp and chocolate covered pumpkin. That's what I brought with me today. I went full fall today. I know that will surprise you. Not at all, Erson.
Not at all.
Looking forward to having my Built Bars here during the show. You want to try them as well. Use the promo code STEVE to get 20% off your first order today at BuiltBar.com. BuiltBar.com. Promo code STEVE to get 20% off. All right, coming your way next hour, we'll get to your feedback via the SteveDeace.com inbox. But we begin, as always, on a Friday with the Deace Group. Your weekly look at the week that was, brought to you by Home Title Lock. What does COVID-19 have to do with losing your home? Turns out it could be a lot, because cybercrime has exploded this year, up 75%. And that's because we're doing more things online, so we're exposed more online than ever before. And that's where our home titles are kept these days as well. And cyber criminals know this, so they go find your home title online, forge your signature on a quit claim deed, and then refile as the new owner of your home. And before you know it, they're liquidating your investment. They're they're cashing in on your equity. They're taking out loans on your property, sticking you with the payments, and sometimes you don't even find out until the foreclosure or eviction notice shows up. That's where Home Title Lock comes in. For pennies a day, they will put a virtual barrier around your home's title so that the instant they detect any tampering whatsoever, they will mobilize to shut it down. But first things first, go to HometitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim and maybe don't know yet at HometitleLock.com. And then while you're there, use the promo code RADIO to get 30 free days of protection for your safe haven, your home at HometitleLock.com, promo code RADIO. Let's get to issue 1. Bleep, Democrats say.
Mike Lees and the William Barrs and the Sean Hannitys and the Mike Pences and the Rudy Giulianis and the Kyle Rittenhouses and the Amy Coney Barretts must be prosecuted and convicted and removed from our society.
Nothing about this today is normal. This is not normal.
All you colonizers, every single one of you that's against Black Lives Matter can the off.
But you condemn white supremacy, correct?
Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
Yes, Judge. I think this hearing is a sham.
Madam Speaker, these are incredibly difficult times right now, and we'll leave it on that note. Thank you so much for joining us.
We'll leave it on the vote that you are not right on this, Wilf, and I hate to say that to you. But I feel confident about it, and I feel confident about my colleagues, and I feel confidence in my chairs.
And it's not about me. It's about millions of Americans who can't put food on the table, who can't pay the rent.
And we represent them. And we represent them. And we represent
these long food lines that we're seeing. I know you are.
And as this crowd is chanting that there are members of the press here who suck, I should also point out, Wolf, what also sucks, getting the coronavirus.
We're now having issues in the Orthodox Jewish community in New York, where because of their religious practices, etc., we're seeing a spread.
I'm 100% frank and candid. This is not a highly nuanced, sophisticated response. This is a fear-driven response. You know, this is not a policy being written by a scalpel. This is a policy being cut by a hatchet.
Well, the rest of this year will not be normal. And, you know, the sooner we deliver that somewhat bad news to people so they can get ready for what will be a tough fall, the better.
The family gathering around Thanksgiving, but that is a risk. You may have to bite the bullet and sacrifice that social gathering.
Only way we'll get completely back to normal is by having maybe not the first generation vaccines, but eventually a vaccine that is super effective and that a lot of the people take, and that we get the disease eliminated on a global basis. That is where we can finally start taking all the problems that have been created in education, mental health, and start to build back in a positive way.
The kinds of investment.
Sir, I've got to ask you about packing the court. Don't the voters deserve to know?
No, they don't deserve. They'll know my opinion of court packing when the election is over. No?
Yes. Gallup reported last week 56% of Americans said that they were better off today than they were 4 years ago, would have been under the Obama-Biden administration. So why should people who feel that they are better off today under the Trump administration vote for you?
Well, if they think that, they probably shouldn't. I got in trouble when we were running against the senator who was a Mormon, the governor, okay? You have to teach people how to de-escalate circumstances. De-escalate. So instead of anybody coming at you and the first thing you do is shoot to kill, you shoot them in the leg. The idea that an 8-year-old child or a 10-year-old child decides, you know, I decided I want to be transgender. That's what I think I'd like to be. It'll make my life a lot easier. There should be zero discrimination. That's why I'm running. I'm running as a proud Democrat for the Senate.
So first question, what was your favorite ride on the crazy carousel this week? Chris is our guest. You get to go first, brother. Go ahead.
I mean, there was a lot of good stuff, but I think my favorite thing is always going to be that crowd behind Jim Acosta chanting CNN sucks. And you know he just wants to turn around and go, you suck too. And he can't do it. And watching him in agony over that is just, it makes my day every week. Joe Biden is the other thing, too. I think, throughout the week, I had this weird feeling like he's starting to do better in the presidential campaign. Like, I watched the whole town hall last night, and if you take away, like, the atrocious answers that he gave on the transgender question and the shooting the leg thing, he sounded calm, he sounded collected, he sounded like he was able to put complete sentences together in a way that a lot of people were expecting he might have a senior moment for. And then you just put all those clips together and you're reminded that this guy is just not with it. So, I don't know. Over the next 18 days, we'll see whether or not he can keep it up or if he continues to fall apart, and we'll see if the American people pick up on that.
Todd?
Not my favorite. I'm going to compile 3 of them. Yeah, I'm taking this personally. Joe Biden on transgenderism. Governor Andrew Cuomo is just fear as a cudgel, fear as the game, fear as policy. Nancy Pelosi just flat out lost her damn mind. Like, Wolf Blitzer is now suddenly too much. She can't even, because how dare you? Do you not know who I am? What do these 3 people have in common? Anybody? Don't pull your punches. They're Catholic. Is my church the church that I believe to be the one true church, as it says it is, most fully ordered through time, founded by Christ himself? Is it ever going to get off its ass and excommunicate somebody? These are foul people. They've excommunicated themselves. The church just recognizes it. It's time you step up. 8-year-olds get to decide their gender. Cuomo gets to be a tyrant as a matter of policy. Nancy Pelosi just gets to be crazy. I'm sick of this. I'm really sick of this. I'm going to keep saying things that are problematic, so somebody talk. I'm just done.
Aaron.
Why do I always have to follow up Todd on Fridays? I think for me, it's also a compilation. Like, it's getting to the point now where there's just no, the cloud pivoting of just crazy, where it's like, I'm not picking on you, Chris, at all, but aside from the answers about shooting people in the leg as a means of control and the transgendering of 8-year-olds answer, it was a pretty good town hall. Those should be disqualifying for anybody, including Todd
most of the
Catcher.
protests have been peaceful.
Yeah, 93% of the protests have been peaceful. But that's the cloud pivoting of crazy, of insanity.
Excellent point.
Of mouth of insanity to where it's like, transgendering of 8-year-olds, let's just throw another shrimp on the Barbie here. That's what they do, though. They so overload. What is that called? Jamming. That's a technique, I believe, from Rules for Radical. I might.
The Marketing of Evil. David
Thank you. I appreciate that. Just jamming, but not with one thing. With a million different pieces of insanity. These people should be in padded rooms with a straitjacket, but yet they're like, okay, it's another day that ends in Y in America. But I think 3 examples that stand out to me this week. One, I believe it was the day or maybe the day after the BLM and Antifa people in Portland organized an Indigenous Peoples Day of Rage, where they toppled statues and raged against the colonizers. That Cory Booker sits in front of Amy Coney Barrett, and a mother of 7, right? Of 7 people, 2 of them adopted. A pinnacle of excellence, a symbol of what this country can offer to people. And you deny, or you speak out against white supremacy, correct? While that's going on, it's just the mouth of madness. The same week that happens, yeah, sorry people, you're gonna have to bite the bullet and not do Thanksgiving this year, Dr. Anthony Fauci. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, we're still being told by Andrew Cuomo in New York, this is not a policy derived out of science. It's a policy derived out of fear. Bill Gates saying we can't really get back to normal until the second generation of the vaccine. That's these goalposts are getting about as wide as sea to shining sea here.
For a virus that has a 0.13 CFR, slightly higher, or IFR, slightly higher than the flu.
And meanwhile, you have the Democrat symbol, Joe Biden, I am the Democrat Party, pulling down his mask, coughing into his mask, and who is more confident that an 8-year-old should be able to transgender than he is what office he's actually running for. That's the state of that's the state of this country right now.
I can't think of any other generation of Americans that if someone had gone on national TV running for president and advocated that an 8-year-old should be able to lop off their private parts if they want, wouldn't have that person arrested. I'm dead serious. I can't think of another generation where you would not face a criminal charge or something for that. I know. Exit question. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being Mazie Hirano's IQ, and 10 representing the tar on her soul. Rate this week's level of total depravity. Aaron?
10.
Chris?
10.
Todd?
Infinity in hell.
Issue 2, 18 days.
President Trump and Joe Biden held dueling town halls last night, with President Trump on NBC and Joe Biden on ABC.
As the president, I have to be out there. I also know...
Well, there's no one that says you can't be out there, but it's just about wearing masks and having, for example, your rallies.
I have not been a fan of court packing because I think it just generates what will happen. Whoever wins, it just keeps moving in a way that is inconsistent with what is going to be manageable.
So you're still not a fan?
Well, I'm not a fan. I then say it depends on how this turns out.
There's tremendous spikes.
But our death rate is worse than, well, not Spain, but those other countries.
I have the United States is down 21%.
But we have, our deaths per capita is among the highest.
I wouldn't be able to get the word out. And the word is false. And you know what?
Vaccines, they say, have a very positive impact, and they're going to affect positively 85% of the American public. We should be talking about, depending on the continuation of the spread of the virus, we should be thinking about making it mandatory.
How could you enforce that?
Well, you couldn't.
Dumped in a garbage can and they happen to have my name on it. I'm not happy about that.
But just those are there is in fact no evidence of widespread fraud.
I want the money to go directly to the
Senate Republicans with you. They're going to go big for a big old number.
You have to teach people how to de-escalate circumstances. De-escalate. So instead of anybody coming at you and the first thing you do is shoot to kill, you shoot them in the leg.
They got rid of the individual mandate.
But
that went through the
promise was
legislature.
repeal and replace.
We will always protect people with pre-existing conditions.
But if you're successful in court in November...
The idea that an 8-year-old child or a 10-year-old child decides, I decided I want to be transgender. That's what I think I'd like to be. It'll make my life a lot easier. There should be zero discrimination.
Polling update, according to the Real Clear Politics polling average, Joe Biden. 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 Oh, that was weird. Anyway, the Real Clear Politics polling average of the battleground states has Joe Biden with a nearly 2-point lead in Florida, a 6.5-point lead in Pennsylvania, a 7-point lead in Michigan, a 6-point lead in Wisconsin, a nearly 3-point lead in North Carolina, and a 4-point lead in Arizona. The election is in 18 days.
So I've done this with several other polls. And I may have gotten 2 Florida polls polled, P-U-L-L-E-D, polled earlier today from distribution when I pointed out their scamology of methodology. All right. So I haven't done this yet with this Trafalgar group on the air. They have a poll. Now, I was told a couple of weeks ago that the Trump campaign basically viewed Michigan as not winnable at the moment and wasn't focusing their efforts on there. So Trafalgar comes out. Trafalgar Group was the most accurate poll of 2016 when it came to the battleground states. So Rasmussen was nationally. Trafalgar Group, which is a GOP polling firm, actually was the most accurate in their battleground state polling in 2016.
And as of now, we will have a guest from Trafalgar Group next week.
Right. And so they have a poll out in Michigan today that actually has Trump slightly ahead, despite the fact that I was told from the campaign about a week and a half ago, that's not one of their main targets or on their radar right now. So I went and looked at their methodology. I've not done this with one of their polls yet. All right. So on their method, they have it right now 46.5 for Trump, 45.9 for Biden, 2% are undecided. All right. So they have 63% of the electorate in Michigan, 45 and older in their poll. It was 58% in 2016. So it's a little high, but I wouldn't lose my mind over that. Okay. I mean, you could absolutely see a turnout model change like that. They have 54% of their samples being female responders. It was actually, the gender gap in Michigan was 52 to 48 in 2016. So they actually have it weighted slightly higher to females, but again, nothing that you would look at that would be crazy. They have 81.6% of the voters in Michigan in 2016 or 2020 in their poll being white. That number was 75% in 2016. So a little elevated, but it's not some number that is historically just not achievable. They have black turnout at 13.3% in their poll. It was 15% in Michigan in 2016. They have Hispanic turnout way down at 1.9%. It was 5% in Michigan. There's not a large Hispanic population there. And I maybe would take some issue with that, but I've been talking this entire campaign that Democrats may be having historical problems with their Hispanic turnout, right? We had the governor of Puerto Rico endorse Trump. We had all of white America, except people that just are way into promoting Trump, thought that first debate was a disaster, except the Telemundo audience loved it. Remember that poll? So I don't know. I might want to ask a question about that, but if Democrats are having historically low or historic problems with Hispanic turnout, and Michigan's not a state that has a high Hispanic turnout, I don't think that that's nuts whatsoever. And so when I look at their methodology, I don't see anything in their methodology that comes close to some of the things we've pointed out in the other polls. So then it just comes down to, are they good at this? And you find out on election day, right? So, but when you look at their methodology, I don't see anything that's nuts compared to some of these other polls. Well, pretty much all these other polls that we've examined on the show up until now. All right. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I saw their poll out there just a few minutes ago. Gentlemen, your thoughts on where things stand. 18 days to go. Chris, we'll start with you.
I've been thinking about this a lot, and I honestly don't know who's going to win the election. I could tell you that in 2016, around this time, we were like 2 or 3 weeks away from the election. I was starting to feel like, Hillary Clinton had all the leads, and everybody in the media was saying that Hillary Clinton was going to win. And I was just like, are you sure? I kind of think like Trump might pull this off. This time, I don't have that same feeling. And, take it for what it is. This is just a gut feeling. I think that people are really just too scared of the coronavirus to think rationally about it. I think that they don't think that Trump is a calm, reassuring presence. I think they're aggravated at the way that Trump behaves and the way that his personality is dominating. And that's the issue. I think his personalities are dominating this election, not issues. And when personalities are the focus of the election, like you're always saying, Steve, the Democrats win. And I think that's the way things are trending. If you look down ballot, there are a lot of Senate races that should not be as close as they are. And if that's an indicator of how things nationally are going to go, then I think the Democrats are going to hold the House. I think Republicans, they may pick up like Doug Jones' seat in Alabama, but they will barely hold on to the majority if they don't lose it by 1 or 2 seats. And I think if the Congress goes, it's probably a good indicator that Trump may not perform as well as he did in 2016. And he won by what, like 72,000 votes between Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania in 2016? It's
about 78,000, yep.
Yeah. So if he doesn't do as well as he did in 2016, that's not a big margin. It's likely he could lose a close election.
Totally agree. If the election is about Orange Man Bad, he is not going to win. Outside of the clicks it generates in our core audiences in conservative media, there is really no desire or attraction to his base persona that is often displayed to the American people. It just doesn't exist outside of what generates clicks on amongst our customers. It just doesn't exist in mainstream America. If it's about with the next 4 years and who's best to put America back to where it was prior to March 11th, then he'll win that election. But his job is to make it about that. That's his job. And he has missed opportunities to do that. He hired Scott Atlas at least a month too late. All right. He blew an opportunity to do that at the last debate. Didn't even bring up his own record, just pestered Joe Biden the entire time. So I completely agree with that analysis. I think you could have the exact same analysis and come to a different conclusion, because I agree with you. I don't know who's going to win. And I said yesterday, if I worked on the Trump campaign, my answer to the president, Todd, would be, tell me what stories are trending nationally the day before the election, and that's who I believe is going to win.
Yeah. Well, I honestly think if I had to pick today, I would pick Trump winning. And not a single vibe that you have, Chris, doesn't go through me at some point. But if I thought he was definitely going to lose, it would be nice just to be able to, make my peace with that and move on. But listen, we just got done talking about this Michigan poll, right? +1 Trump, right? Mm-hmm. Governor Gretchen Whitmer, in terms of coronavirus fear and Orange Man bad, she doesn't take a back seat to anybody. If that's real in that state, Michigan, Trump is going to win. Because I agree. If Trump were to win Michigan, he would win the election. Yeah, that's my point. I agree. And I think if it's trending that way, and last night, again, I know people are just losing their minds about Savannah Guthrie. She's exactly what you would have guessed she would be. I think I was just happy, he did exactly what I told him to do. He was just a happy warrior. He was likable. He didn't get flustered by anything. He didn't let her bother. If he would have done that with Joe Biden, my goodness, it would be Michigan +5 by now, I think. And trust me, I tweeted about this. His answers were meandering. They weren't particularly convincing. They certainly weren't conservative in a lot of ways. But yeah, Donald Trump. But he was likable. There was no denying that. Just like, apparently, and I've only seen the clips of, despite the crazy we talked about with Biden, that he sounded more lucid in just terms of speech patterns. Okay, that's fine. But Trump was definitely more likable. If he can maintain that, and if this is true in Michigan, he's going to win. Aaron?
Yeah, I'm basically at the same place as y'all are. There's just a lot of things we have to admit to ourselves that just don't add up. Based on the anecdotal and I'm doing air quotes here, and based on anecdotal versus scientific or polling data, what have you. Because anecdotally and looking at the environment, Trump should be winning by a large margin right now. But then when you look at the polling, there's been some polling that's been out over the summer favoring mask mandates, favoring lockdowns, saying that people are scared. What makes us think that any of those polls is supposedly showing a majority of Americans favoring these absurd policies to curb the virus? What makes you think that those aren't made up, or those aren't poisoned the same way that some of the polls we see for the presidential race are right now? So there are just a ton of things that just don't add up. Because what I'm seeing anecdotally, if you go into a local business, at least around here anyway, I don't know if you guys have the same experience, virtually none of them require masks, and none of those local businesses that I've been to anyway, or could just be, again, this is anecdotal, they don't wear masks there. You go into the national chains, everybody has a mask mandate there. And you look at people as well, people seem to be anecdotally pretty sick of wearing a mask and all of these stupid lockdowns and just COVID fatigue. But then you also hear stories about people just continuing to be panicked as all get out as well. So there's just a lot of things that really don't make sense. And I tend to agree that whatever is the big talking point a week or a few days before the election, that's going to be what determines it. And I can guarantee you that QAnon, which Donald Trump was asked about last night, is not going to be one of those issues, guys. It's not.
Very quickly, exit question. If the election were today, who would win? Aaron?
Trump.
Todd? Trump. Chris?
Biden.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm copping out. I get to do that. It's my show. Yeah. We'll come back. Biden, Burisma, and big tech next. You know, one of the things that makes us happy about being pet owners is making our pets happy, making our dogs happy. So we take them for walks. Some of you even take them for runs. You feed them, you give them treats, right? Well, you know what your dog also needs to make them happy is better nutrition, because chances are it's lacking from that dead as a doornail food that you bought at the grocery store, because it's been stripped of pretty much all the nutrients your pet needs, just like a lot of our food has been. That's why we've made the supplement industry so lucrative as humans. Same thing goes for our pets. A lot of those probiotics, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, omega oils, not in your dog's store-bought food, but with Rough Greens VitaSmart, it will go back in. It's not a new dog food. It's a premium dog food supplement that you mix in with the food your dog already loves, and it puts all the good stuff back in the food, and they'll love the taste of it even more. At least our dog Cap does. And right now you can try for just $14.95 and see if you don't see a difference in your dog in 2 weeks or less when you get the Jumpstart bag at roughgreens.com/blaze. That's RUFF. That's how they spell it. roughgreens.com/blaze. Again, that's roughgreens.com/blaze. All right, let's get back to the Deace Group, our weekly look at the week that was. We welcome back in our good friend Chris Pandolfo. Let's get to issue 3, Biden, Burisma, and Big Tech.
2 bombshells dropped this week from the New York Post regarding sleazy at best dealings between Hunter Biden, Ukrainian and Chinese businesses, and his father, Joe Biden. Both Post exposés were the result of a trove of data gathered from a hard drive backup of a laptop that was dropped off at a Delaware computer repair shop near the Bidens' hometown that was never picked up. The laptop in question was seized by the FBI in 2019, but not before. The computer repair shop saved a copy of the hard drive, and it eventually ended up in the hands of Trump ally Rudy Giuliani. The first Post story showed emails from executives at Ukrainian energy company Burisma, where Hunter Biden was on the board, thanking Biden for introducing them to his father at the time, Vice President Joe Biden. Months later, the elder Biden successfully pressured Ukraine into firing a prosecutor who was looking into corruption at the aforementioned Burisma. The second expose featured emails between Hunter Biden and executives at a now-defunct Chinese energy firm detailing Hunter's pursuit of lucrative yet opaque business deals that would be, quote, interesting to me and my family. The stories are troubling at best, but the truly disturbing part of this saga is the story around the stories. With both exposés, both Facebook and Twitter did their darndest to suppress the stories, with Twitter outright banning the sharing of URLs to the Post articles. In response, Missouri Senator Josh Hawley sent a letter to the Federal Elections Commission alleging Twitter was violating federal election law by doing so. Later, Senator Ted Cruz announced a vote to subpoena Twitter and Facebook executives Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg, respectively. Further, Federal Communications Commission Chairman Ajit Pai announced late on Thursday that he confirmed he and the FCC has the legal authority to interpret Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act, which in effect has allowed Twitter and Facebook to get away with monopolistic behavior as he deems fit. The digital Cold War went hot this week.
So, I think we're all going to stipulate that a guy with an overall fairly mediocre professional profile and who is sadly, apparently addicted to crack, wasn't going to get foreign companies and foreign nationals in the Ukraine and China to pay him the lucrative princely sums that they did if his name were Hunter Pandolfo, Hunter Deace, Hunter Erzin, right? It's because his name is Hunter Biden. We can all stipulate to that, right? And just move on to that. Yeah. That he was running some form.
He's admitted to that as well.
Yeah. He's running some form of Clinton Foundation, Biden Foundation scam, and that he was running it. Now it's just a matter of whether his dad was in on it or he was just, being the shady black sheep of the family. We don't know that yet. Okay, but that to me is not in dispute. So not with that stipulated and tabled. What is the bigger story here? The Biden Burisma corruption and how far it goes. And by the way, we still have not gotten to the story that I was told earlier this week was coming before we even got the New York Post story. And I'm told that story's coming next week, that there's more on this and it's coming next week is what I was told. And it's it's got similar strains, but it's a separate story to this. So there's going to be another front on this opened up next week, I am told. So what's the bigger story here? The Biden Burisma corruption and where it may lead, or the the long-standing outcome and impact of big tech's attempt to censor this story this week? Todd, I'll start with you.
It's the big tech censorship. I mean, when we were doing the Ukraine impeachment with Trump, and Steve, you alluded to it earlier in the week, like quid pro quo, welcome to politics throughout all of history, American or otherwise. This is how things work on some level. Is this worth investigating, even despite the hypocrisy? Yes, but again, this is human nature. It's how this goes. But it's the big tech censorship, though, where it's purely Orwellian. Four legs good, two legs bad. It's absolutely where we live. And don't forget, we told you this before 2020. Like, enough of the what happens when down the road. If we don't say, we are at the bottom of the slippery slope. It is for full Orwell. We're in the novel right now. And there is simply no chance of avoiding civil war if the rules aren't even remotely even in any venue for discussion, and they increasingly aren't. We are being Fauci'd at every single level. We're being Fauci'd with the medicine, with science. We're being Fauci'd with medicine. We're being Fauci'd with the polling. We're being Fauci'd with this. These aren't dumb people. It's not that they're not capable, but the worldview, the spirit of the age is so dominant now that it promises without shame. Twitter Jack was caught red-handed. They're still going to try to win it. They're not going to apologize. So you have to fight back with extreme prejudice. That's where the rubber meets the road on this. This victory must be won.
So I just got a notification that Facebook is claiming that when I posted the actual CDC data earlier this week, where they studied the outpatient centers in 11 outpatient centers around the country with people who ended up testing positive for the virus. And one of the questions they asked them was about their personal mask use.
Yep.
And 85% of the people, this is right from the CDC data, 85% of the people claimed that they were wearing their mask always or often. Now, I didn't say this at the time. Let's assume that some of that is inflated. I want a virtue signal. You know what I'm saying? I don't want you to know that I'm one of these troglodytes who doesn't believe in the science that you haven't proven to me. And let's just say that number's in half. It's not that, it wouldn't be that inflated, but let's even inflate it. Let's say it's inflated by half. That still would mean 45, 50% of the people that went in there were legitimately wearing masks and then still tested positive for the virus, okay? So Facebook sent and is sending out to my followers on Facebook. Here's what I'm just going to read to you what it says. A post shared by your page is missing context. Independent fact checkers at Science Feedback say that information in a post shared by Steve Deace is missing context and could mislead people. We've added a notice to the post from independent fact checkers. Here's their fact check. Here's verbatim. I'm going to read it to you. Mask use does not increase risk of COVID-19 as viral social media posts claim.
That's not what you were claiming.
I never made that claim. I didn't make that claim at all. I never said that. I didn't say that. I just said it clearly didn't stop these people from getting it. I didn't say it caused them to get it. I just said it didn't stop them from getting it. They fact-checked me and highlighted me on a claim I never made. I never made this claim.
They are clearly in the realm of publisher, at least in this specific instance of their platform.
No question.
And you can sue them for that because they're lying about what you said as a publisher.
There's no question. I never made that claim. I never made the claim. Have I made that claim even to you guys privately?
No.
No, I've not made that claim. I've said masks don't work, and they don't work. All the data shows they don't work. That's why they didn't fact check me on that. They fact-checked me on something I never even said. That's just a real-time example of the Orwellian behavior going on here. And at some point, if government doesn't exist to stop unaccountable entities from obtaining a monopoly on the flow of information in a free society, then there's really no reason for government then to exist at all. Chris, what are your thoughts?
I agree with you guys that the big tech stuff is more important than the Joe Biden story, and that's the reason it's more important, is because Facebook and Twitter and social media has become such a dominant force in how people obtain their information that people forget that these are private companies. They have their own editorial point of view, and as far as the law goes, they're allowed to use that editorial point of view to decide which posts they like, which posts they want to feature, and which posts will get seen by more people who are using their platform, and which posts they want to suppress. And so what you saw this week, more or less, is the first reason that Facebook and Twitter each gave for suppressing the Hunter Biden story was, they didn't think it was authoritative reporting. Facebook said they were going to limit its distribution because they wanted an independent fact check to review it first. Twitter just said, well, it's not authoritative reporting, and also it violates our policies on sharing images that have Hunter Biden's email, and so we're going to just ban it outright. Now, what people have to understand is they have that power under the law to do it. So if you want to circumvent these liberal, progressively run companies, which have a point of view, which are obviously intending to use that point of view to influence how people receive information, you either A, have to figure out a way around them, whether it's as a media company is not using social media platforms, going back to things like email, going directly to your customers rather than trying to use this medium, or you have to get the government involved to regulate it. My feeling is the government's going to become involved in regulating it for good or for ill, because Republicans, conservatives are not always going to be in charge of the federal government. They're not always going to be in charge of regulatory bodies. In fact, the way that these things tend to go is progressives end up in charge of the regulatory bodies because progressives are the ones who like government. So it's just I don't know if there's a way out of that because of the nature of how big these companies have gotten, because of the nature of how government just keeps growing and growing and growing, and people's freedoms are becoming more and more limited.
There's only one way out of it. If you don't get government to affirmatively defend your freedoms, we all know there's only one way out of it. And that is what I am afraid of. Okay? I'm doing what I can in my little corner of the universe to never have us forced to the conclusion that they're trying to force us to. That there's only one way the people who own all the guns are going to get to protect any form of their rights or freedoms at all. And I don't want to see that. I would not like to hand that off to my children. But if the people you elect don't enforce regulations and laws and rules, then if it is every man for himself, then the people with the guns are going to act accordingly. And there's no other path. There's no other end game other than that end game, unless we have a political party that actually does the stuff we elect them to do, so that we have a viable voice in the process. So not even a majority voice, viable. Like we don't just get run over on everything. Like we win every now and then on something. Without that, eventually the people who own all the guns are going to say, well, then I guess it's up to me, right? I looked in the mirror and it turned out it was up to me. Lock and load. I would like that to not happen. But we're heading down that path, and fast, folks, fast. Todd, you get the last word. And Justin Amash, he's not a conservative; he's a libertarian. So he's on the side of Twitter on this, the private company, all that stuff. But in conservatives, for many years, and I know I've lazily fallen prey to that in my youth. About just bromides, smaller government. It's about subsidiarity, the appropriate role of government in its sphere. We have zoning laws for a reason. Are we against those as conservatives? If I live right here, I don't want a disco moving next to me so I can't sleep at night. Are zoning laws tyrannical? Excellent point. It's the appropriate role of government in the proper sphere. We don't believe in no government. This is just stupid and lazy. Yeah. So get on board with getting rid of these tyrannies, because that is the role of government. Yeah, I'll get in on this very, very quickly. It's a total straw man. Well, you just want bigger government. No, we want government. We just want some government. Yeah.
A little bit of government, would that be okay? And it's the Ma Bell. It's the Ma Bell example that you brought up before. Right. It's any number of discriminate. It is the way, it is the technology by which we communicate, and we have the town square dialogue. When you're censoring one side of the aisle on that, that's just untenable, as you said.
Hey, tell you what, if you guys don't want government, fine. Just keep in mind, we own all the guns. All right? So if you don't want any government, then okay, you want us to just play this out on strictly individual autonomy means? Just remember, you're picking on the people who own all the guns. Then, okay? You know what? I'm going to skip the exit question. Let's go right to predictions. Todd, go. You go first.
Well, if things definitely trend in the next couple weeks towards Trump, Fauci is going to quit. And he is going to have some sort of 11th hour complaint against Donald Trump.
I think that's going to happen regardless. But so good prediction. Chris?
I think that the Democrats, whether it's controlling the presidency or if they win this control of the Senate, are going to be in the driver's seat in the next Supreme Court nomination. I think they're probably going to fill Clarence Thomas's seat when he retires. And that's going to rebalance the court and give them an excuse not to pack it.
Aaron?
There will be at least one more presidential debate.
I'm going to predict Kamala Harris is never president, regardless of what happens on November the 3rd. I just don't believe the Democratic Party is going to hand over its branding to her in that kind of packaging and put all of their collective fates in her hands. I don't believe that. I don't. So that's my prediction. Kamala Harris will never be president, regardless of what does or doesn't happen on November 3rd or Joe Biden's health or anything of that nature. I just don't think it'll ever happen. Chris, good to see you as always, man. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Steve.
You bet. All right. When we come back, we're going to get to Feedback Friday, and we're going to start with an email that is going to blow your minds. I promise. This is not tongue in cheek. I like to do that every now and then. Straight up, man. Minds are going to be blown when I share this email with you. I didn't think it was true. I tested it myself during the last break. It is true. What I'm about to share with you. Stay tuned. And we are back with Hour 2, live and on demand here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Todd Erzin, with Aaron McIntyre. Sorry, I just took a drink of the caffeine-free Dr. Pepper. They had it again at Walmart yesterday. I'm happy.
I saw you waxing about that.
I didn't have to use my AK. Today was a good day. Yes. So forgive the Marco Rubio moment there. So we are going to get to Feedback Friday here on the Steve Deace Show, hour number 2. That's Todd Erzin. That's Aaron McIntyre. That's all of you. Steve at stevedeace.com is how you can email us. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Steve Deace Show. That's DEACE. Over on Parler at Steve Deace. YouTube. Go to our new YouTube channel at youtube.com/Steve Deace as well. And if you are a podcast listener, if you haven't done this yet, if you wouldn't mind leaving us a 5-star review and hitting that subscribe button on whichever platform you podcast the program through, we would appreciate you for doing that, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, Amazon. So we're on, I forgot to tell you guys, we're on Amazon Music now, which apparently has podcasts.
It's true.
Yeah, we're there too. So leave us a 5-star review, hit that subscribe button. The more of you that do that for us, the more it helps the podcast to grow. And we want to thank all of you that have done that for us already. All right, part 1 of Feedback Friday is brought to you by ScoreMaster. You know, the average American has almost 100 points that they could gain out there in a few months on their credit score and just doesn't know how to obtain them. And that's where ScoreMaster comes in. It's the new credit science that will help you super boost your credit score. Now, what do we mean by super boost? How about the fact that the average ScoreMaster user can raise their score 61 points in 20 days or less? 61 points in 20 days or less. That makes a huge difference. going from the mid 500s to the low 600s could be the difference on whether you even get approved for that business, home, or car loan. Going from the 600s to the 700s can certainly improve the offer that you're given with your approval and the interest rate, etc. So it makes a big difference. Plus, a lot of employers are doing credit reports as background checks these days as well. And so how does this work? It shows you the real information and data. It lays it bare for you, puts the information, empowers you with it in your hands so that you're in control of your fate and not the banks. And then it shows you specifically what you can do to get to the score you're specifically shooting for. You can enroll in minutes, see how many plus points ScoreMaster can help you add to your score and how long it'll take to get there when you visit scoremaster.com/Steve. That's scoremaster.com/Steve. All right, let's get to Feedback Friday. And I want to begin with an email I just received a few minutes ago. And now I'm a little concerned that I blew this out of proportion, but I hope not, because it blew my mind. And I read this email just a few minutes ago, and I'm like, there's no way this is true.
What did they pumpkin spice now?
And this is going to give pumpkin spice a run for its money. And then I went and I ran the numbers myself, and lo and behold, it is true. All right? It is true, this email I'm about to send to you or share with you. One of my favorite stories of the 2004 election cycle is John Kerry was asked once on the campaign trail, hey, what's your favorite Bible verse? And he said John 16:3 instead of John 3:16. Which is, most people's default, right? When they're not quoting Matthew 7 out of context, right? And when you go to John 16:3, you know what it says? And they will do these things because they do not know me. Unintentional self-owns are always the best, right? Okay? Keep that in mind. I mean, that's cosmic stuff right there, right? That's cosmic. This is a note from William Gleason. And he just sent this to the show earlier this morning, and I just saw it a few minutes ago. You guys probably already know this, but do your viewers and listeners know this? If you take the year 2020 as a number, and you divide 2020 as a number by the number 666,
oh, God.
you get 3.0330. And so I did that math during the last break. It is true. 2020 divided by 666 is 3.0330. Guys, the text number for joining Biden-Harris is 30330.
Yeah, I've seen this.
Is this Harold Camping trolling you?
Are you freaking kidding me?
Well, depending on which day, Biden text Joe to 303 because he said that before as well.
Yeah. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Oh, come on, man. Are you kidding me with this? How many number combinations out there are there? How many other text numbers could you have? And they just happen to be given this one?
Well, okay, what is the, Aaron, what is the deal with that number? Like, how are they assigned, or how do you know this?
Usually campaigns and businesses will just try to find one that's easy to remember.
Yeah.
So like, it's just it's pretty random.
I'm sure they didn't I don't think they plotted this. That's what makes it effective.
But I want to know how it happens. But
it's pretty random as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. Dude, are you kidding me with this?
Crazy voices in the head. I tell you.
Yeah.
Next on Coast.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, the shadow people. I'm one step away, guys. I'm 5 minutes from there. All right?
Our post-election year show is going to be as lit as the Gadsden Mall. We have some stuff coming down the what we were assuming you're being lied to for this year. I don't.
I'm going to be dividing everything by 666 forever from now on.
To the calculator.
First of all, who did that first? Who did that first? Who thought, I'm going to divide 2020 by 666 and then match it up with Joe Biden's text campaign number? Who thought to do that, first of all? Maybe, you know what? Yesterday we had to start the hashtag Joe Biden or Hunter Biden's computer repair guy did not kill himself. We had to start that hashtag yesterday. New hashtag, guy who first divided 2020 by 666 did not kill himself. Who came up with this? And it's legit.
Next year's theme is Carpathia cometh.
Come on, man. Even you sitting over there in the Catholic corner.
No.
You cannot wreck that. Come on.
I'm not trying. I got out my obvious low-hanging fruit Harold Camping joke, and then I'm in.
I'm just, wow.
Here, this is what we said before about Orwell, but about the spirit of the... It's not rhetoric. It never was. But we're in it. We are in the upside down. We are at the bottom of the slippery slope. Spirit of the age. You knew this to be true. This just puts an actual bit of eerie math on it, but we know it to be true.
I'm broken right now.
This is how
I am broken right now.
This is how you get a man named Joe Biden, who has been in politics longer than Steve and I have been alive. Not in politics. He's been in
like on a national level, not like city councilman,
right.
Like on a national level longer than you and I have been alive.
And you see the swath of issues that he's taken up. The guy saying the eulogy at the Grand Kleagle of the
Grand Cyclops of the KKK, Robert Byrd, he called him a friend, mentor, and guide.
Yes.
That was when he was vice president of the United States.
Yes.
Robert Byrd died in 2012,
How does that guy just yesterday say 8-year-olds should be able to transgender themselves? It's because of that math. That's it.
Dude, I'm just like, holy freaking crap. Are you kidding me with that? Like, I'm struggling to like move on. I'm just like, wow.
This is what I
Han Solo, it's real. All of it.
Yeah. And Biden, Pelosi, Cuomo, look what they think. Look what they believe. Look how they hate. It's that math.
The devil's arithmetic is what you're saying.
Yes. Listen, God, from the stars, astronomy, math, the Greeks, they were all learning about God and His order through those things. Through design, math, it's
general
not,
revelation.
Yes, yeah. It's not random. We're back in Romans 1. This is how we know. Well, just as with everything else, we were just talking yesterday about your book, Steve. The devil is the upside down. It's so envious. He has his own version of everything because he so badly wants to usurp God. Yes, the devil has his own math.
Let's try to move on. I'm not sure I can, but we'll give it a shot. Thomas Sutterfield has some issues. He says, hey, all you guys do is lie. I've been a faithful viewer, listener for years, but the lies have become too much. Please see the following examples of your show's rampant deceit.
Awesome.
I have placed numerous handicapping wagers on the Bundesliga without a win. Vinegar has not cured any of my health ailments. I made pumpkin spice spaghetti for my wife and ended up at my parents' house. I cannot find a single reputable real estate agent at realestateagentsstevedeacetrust.com. I've used Field of Greens on my lawn all summer without growing a single serving of veggies. I have sprinkled rough greens on my morning Fruit Loops and strongly disagree with Cap about the taste. I had Tommy John surgery and now my underwear is still bunching and riding up. Nevertheless, I will continue to tune in daily to ensure you address these falsehoods. That's very well done. That's excellent.
I think not all of you, but some of you could take your, who is that?
Thomas Sutterfield.
I think some of you need to take your cues from Tom. Yeah, just keep watching.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And listening.
Yes.
That's the kind of guy that makes for a good Christmas for the Dace kids right there. Yep. I mean, if he's paying attention.
I agree. I think it was Jim Rome who used to say, when I used to listen to him years ago, hey, our show's an acquired taste. It takes about 2 weeks to listen to it. Tremendous. And after 2 weeks, if you still don't like it, just keep listening anyway. I love that talking point. I used to use it in one of my liners in sports talk radio, but that made me think about that when he was talking about, I'm going to listen anyway. All right. Despite the lies, you sit on a throne of lies.
And it's glorious. He started off with betting on the Bundesliga.
Yes. Jess says, I used to think as a quasi-federal employee that 10 annual holidays and 5 weeks of vacation after 15 years was unreal, that there was nothing like that in private enterprise. Then after I retired, I took a temporary job with GM as a proving ground and found out their vacation time was outrageous. 26 paid holidays and 6 weeks of paid vacation to start. I'm beginning to think your vacation schedule rivals this. Why am I jealous? Because I have, frankly, an idolatrous love of your show. And by the way, very few people call balls and strikes the way that you guys do. That's very kind. I know it seems like we have a lot of vacation because this year we took like none. And don't get me wrong, we have a good amount, So I have to produce for you, the people, 230 unique shows a year. And there's, if you don't count Saturday and Sunday, I believe there's 255 potential broadcast days, something like that, or 256, something like that. So anything above those 230 shows, provided I deliver those 230 live daily shows for you guys and you, the people of America, then the rest of the year we get off. I just have to deliver that many live shows. I think that's the number. So this year, because after this election, we gonna be gone a lot. All right. So it just seems like we have a lot of vacation because we haven't taken that much this year. In election years, we typically backlog our vacation time anyway to be on the air as much as possible. It's just that in the springtime, for example, we didn't take our Final Four or NCAA tournament vacation because there wasn't one. With everything going on with the virus and our show was on the front lines of that, we were just here every day, fighting the good fight. So next year, when it's not an election year, it'll be a little bit more spread out and hopefully won't be as cumbersome for you guys that like the program. Thank you. Rodney says, with everything going on today, culturally, politically, etc., which do you think was a bigger contributor to getting us here? The 2000 election or 9/11? Or do you think there's a more impactful event that has happened in the last 20 years that has brought us to the brink? I do. I do think there's a more impactful event in the last 20 years that has brought us to the brink. And I think it's two things that have done this. Since 9/11 and since the 2000 election. I think the election of Barack Obama is one of them. And then I think what the court did on the marriage issue is the other one.
Bingo.
The reason why I think the election of Barack Obama is one of them is because Barack Obama did one thing that I view as a morally neutral proposition. It's just a strategy and it worked. He changed, he was the first to fully invoke, we didn't know what terms like micro-targeting, we didn't know what those terms meant. I mean, Barack Obama's 2008 campaign was on the cutting edge. And I'm not talking against John McCain. I'm talking to beat Hillary Clinton and John Edwards, a former vice presidential nominee, coming out of nowhere as a one-term senator from Illinois. His campaign was on the cutting edge of what today's technology. I mean, I remember people in Iowa getting phone, robocalls. We didn't know what they even were in 2000, the summer and fall of 2007. You'd answer your cell phone, "Hi, I'm Michelle Obama." You thought she was calling you. We didn't know what these things were. And nobody had done this stuff yet. And what he was able to do with both give him credit, his political talent. There's no question he has a God-given amount of charisma and political talent. No question about that. So the combination of his talent, but then the ingenuity of his campaign people to fully embrace the cutting edge of the new social media revolution that was just underway at this time, allowed him to do something that had not been done really in America probably since the television and the telephone. Create a counter-electorate, meaning turning out people who traditionally don't show up in primaries so that polls and things like that are largely irrelevant, because I'm bringing voters to the process that typically weren't getting engaged or weren't motivated to come, and I'm bringing them there. It's not just that I'm using the technology to reach them, it's that they like my message or the way that I'm messaging to them. That's why you have to recognize Barack Obama's political talent. The technology on its own, who's the gentleman who's on CNN now that ran those campaigns? David Axelrod. Yeah. What those people did would have made Barack Obama a viable candidate because of how cutting edge they were, ahead of the game. But it wouldn't have won him elections. You know what I'm saying? You win elections, the candidate wins elections, not the process, not a campaign. Candidates win. And no campaign can rise above its own candidate. If the candidate's not good, you can't do any better, then that's where water reaches its level. All right? So those two things allowed him to create a counter-electorate. And it permitted him to never have to pivot to the middle, ever. He essentially got to do what Michael Dukakis tried to do in 1988, but lacked the charisma of Barack Obama, and the electorate was still too right of center for Michael Dukakis to get away with it. But it allowed Barack Obama to own all the space on the left in the Democratic primary, and that launched him to the nomination, and then it allowed him to remain there the entire general election. We never counted early voting numbers or things of that nature until 2008. He changed the framing of the electorate. And much of the strategy, I've gotten this firsthand from them, much of the strategy you saw Trump pursue in 2016 was an homage, an emulation. The rallies, the idea of investing in him as a personal brand, even more so than on issues. A lot of that was an emulation of what they had seen Barack Obama do. Ignoring GOP consultants and just living in these Rust Belt states that Republicans could not figure out how to win them in presidential election years since the 80s. And he's like, hey, I'm going to create a new electorate. Rural white people that voted for Obama once, if not twice, or didn't vote at all, and they're going to come out and vote for me. And you saw Trump do his own emulation of what Barack Obama did. And it permitted Barack Obama to never, ever have to pivot to any kind of a moderate Democrat general election strategy ever. That's how Bill Clinton won twice. And Barack Obama outperformed Bill Clinton by never doing it. Because he figured out with the power of his personality and the new technology, he could frame the electorate. And that's where the paradigm shifted from, it's not about winning a majority of the voters. It's winning a majority of those who actually turn out to vote. And that changed the game. And it also made things far more balkanized and far more polarized than they already were. And that's why they stuck with the messaging continuously. To oppose Obama meant you were racist. Because they knew they didn't have to ever pivot to the middle, so we don't have to engage you or legitimize you as real opposition. We'll just call you names. It works. It turns our base out. Our base responds. And I don't think we're ever going back to the 40% on the Democrats and 40% Republicans, and elections are decided by 20% of people in the middle. I think that paradigm's dead as a doornail, gone, dead and buried. Mitt Romney won independents by 5 points in 2016 and still lost the presidency to Barack Obama. That would have been unthinkable in almost any other era. So that's the first thing that changed, is Barack Obama proved with today's technology, and you've seen conservative media adopt a lot of this. Well, we don't have to go out there and win arguments with these guys anymore. We'll just keep feeding our own feedback loop to our own customers to turn them out, because Barack Obama showed that it doesn't matter about winning a majority opinion. You just win the majority of those who show up. And if you cause people who don't like you or are disgusted by the process to not come out and vote at all or against you, that's a win, right? That's a win. Then their vote doesn't count. That's a win. I just need to have people voting for me be more than the people voting either against me or for you. And I don't think we're ever going back to any other kind of a, who's the mushy middle electorate. I don't think that's ever happening ever again. And so partisanship is now incentivized more than ever before. That's the first thing. And the other thing is the marriage ruling. Simply because on one hand, in the first one, the Supreme Court said that 7.5 million people in California cannot get standing to have their vote heard. That we can just wipe out your votes like they never happened. And if we do that on an issue like marriage, why can't we just do it on everything else? That's number one. And the other factor there is what it unleashed. The weaponizing of government in order to promote a counter morality. Not to tolerate it. Not to permit it. I didn't say that. Is that what I said?
No.
No. To promote it. The transition from the old liberals to the new leftists, the marriage opinion cemented that. And, the old liberals just wanted government to permit you to do things that God says was dumb. God says is dumb or immoral. The new leftists want government to compel you to do those things. The idea that government could, therefore now, push its limits all the way to your own individual conscience. That your own business that you started, that you built, that you put the sweat equity in, you could be coerced and forced to use it to promote a message that your conscience disagrees with. We could take this all the way to the convents with the nuns. That you must comply. We've never seen that with religion in America because it's antithetical to the First Amendment. And all the stuff, what it did is it militarized and weaponized political correctness. So now it's just not that, you can't be on the faculty at this university if you believe these things. Now you can't be a student. Now your student organization can't be recognized. You can't be considered a legit member of society. Which goes back to the first point with Obama. Hyper-partisanship incentivized at levels higher than ever before. And once these sorts of things become acceptable in the rules of engagement, there isn't a polite way to end them. That's what's so frustrating. I mean, if I can just take away your moral conscience, why can't I just take away your vote? Why would I permit you to vote for racist, misogynistic, xenophobic homophobes? Why would I permit that?
It's for your own good.
It's for your own good we're not counting your vote. It's for your own good we're cheating. You don't know it yet, but we're better at this than you. We're better humans than you are. And what both of those moments did, Rodney, is they canceled the arena of ideas. And they created a political culture where I no longer have to debate you because you're beneath contempt. Your views aren't worth being considered. And so when Rick Santorum gives a counter opinion on CNN, number one trending thing on Twitter worldwide is a hashtag about I can't believe CNN hires Rick Santorum. Like, I shouldn't have to even be subjected to things I don't agree with. The story that came out before Trump's town hall last night from Yashar Ali or whatever that guy's name is, about, I can't tell you how many NBC News employees I've heard from who are upset that their network is giving Donald Trump counter programming to Joe Biden because they're hacktivists. That's what they are. They're not even biased. They're promoters of something. You can argue against bias. You can expose it. You can defeat it in the arena of ideas. But when the notion we're even going to try to promote, even an alternative truth, is thrown out, and it's just all propagation and perpetuation and promotion of a narrative, now you're in the land of the judges, man. Everyone just does what is wise in their own eyes at that point. And that's where we are right now. And that's why I said yesterday, elections in America are going to change. They're no longer going to be about ideology and things of that nature. It's going to be about who's going to use the levers and powers of government to either impose my will on others or stop them from imposing their will on me. Nothing more, nothing less. I'm not saying that's good. I'm not in favor of that. I've lost relationships and business opportunities the last few years pushing back against us getting to this zero-sum game. Because you know what happens if we go to that zero-sum game? The next step is 1860, okay? But as a conservative, I can't wish cast. I have to observe history and the truth for what it is. I lost that argument. That argument is over. That is what politics is going to be. And it's mainly going to be that way because the other side doesn't want to permit a country where your views are tolerated. An 80-year-old man who started his career as a friend to segregationists went on national television last night and said he was fine with an 8-year-old getting their penis lopped off because they thought they were a girl. You cannot debate that. And it's not going to debate you. One of you will lose and the other will win. That's it. Politics are now a steel cage match, man. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. More in a moment. Hey, let me mention Built Bar one more time because I am such a huge fan. The chocolate covered apple crisp bar is sitting over there on my desk waiting for my next lunch hour to arrive. You want to get a hold of, well, it's a protein bar, but it's going to be one of the best tasting candy bars with 18 different flavors you've ever had. Low on sugar, low in calories, high in protein, high in fiber, easy on the tummy. That's a big thing for me. All right. 18 different flavors, all of them covered in 100% chocolate. I promise you it is going to be the best protein bar you've ever had, the best snack bar you've ever had. And you can only get them at BuiltBar.com. Use the promo code Steve right now at BuiltBar.com to get 20% off your order. Coconut almond, raspberry, the pumpkin flavor, apple crisp. The coconut stuff, by the way, if you're like into Mounds and Almond Joy candy bars, I mean, it tastes almost exactly like one of those. There's lots of different chocolate peanut butter flavors. So chocolate peanut butter brownie and things of that nature. The mint chocolate flavor is really good. Frankly, they're all good. I have not had one that was not good. All right. BuiltBar.com is where you can go. Use the promo code Steve to get 20% off at BuiltBar.com. All right, let's continue on with Feedback Friday. This is from Keith in Cincinnati. My daughter is currently a freshman at a college in Nashville. She recently called with the following story. She was shopping at a Target store in the Nashville area when she was approached in the aisle by a young woman in a lab coat who appeared to be a pharmacist. She asked my daughter, "Have you gotten your flu shot yet?" My daughter replied, "No, I don't usually get one." The pharmacist was visibly taken aback and began to belittle my daughter about how rude and inconsiderate that was, and my daughter walked away, paid for her items, and left the store. She called my wife and I and relayed the story, and needless to say, we may own a Target in suburban Nashville when this is all said and done. But is this what we need to expect in the coming weeks and months as we enter the flu season? Yeah.
Yep.
If they ever come up with the coronavirus vaccine, and again, we never have come up with a coronavirus vaccine in all of human history, which means I would highly doubt the efficacy of one when they claim they come up with it. You can expect that level of shaming and everything else. The question is, are you going to tolerate it? That's the question, Aaron.
Point of order. What is flu?
That's a great question, because this is something we're going to be talking about here soon. But we had a great researcher out of Ohio, Kyle Lamb, was on our show. What was this, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think it was?
Mm-hmm.
And he emailed me this morning. He is doing a deep dive on the fact that the flu virus has literally disappeared from planet Earth in the year 2020. Like, we're not testing for it or anything. Why? So I don't know where you guys live, but here in Iowa, last I heard, the positive test rate was slightly under 6% in Iowa. Does that sound about right?
Yep.
So remember, COVID-like symptoms is grouped in with which other virus?
ILI, influenza-like illness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mentioned on the show the other day, my youngest daughter, Zoe, healthy 14-year-old teenage girl, thinnest member of the family. She has not had any sort of, that residual fever that just doesn't want to go away. That's one of the prime COVID symptoms, right? But she had all the symptoms of a bronchitis, which in any other year, that is what we would have just diagnosed. And we tried to fight it naturally as best we could, but in the end, I thought she needed an antibiotic. So after trying to fight it naturally as best we could for a few days, Amy took her into the doctor. She has no other symptoms other than chest congestion. And they decided to do a COVID test. Now, they would not have done a COVID test on a 14-year-old girl not running a fever in March, April, or May. But now they're trying to test everything that moves, right? Okay. Of course, her test comes back negative. So everything is COVID now? She gets an antibiotic for her bronchitis. Within a couple of days, she's already feeling better. What's that line from Bjork we used to quote on the show?
Everything is COVID.
Yes, all this COVID, all this music. Yes, yeah. I mean, flu. Now, there's a few reasons why the flu could have disappeared, and we'll talk to Kyle about this and when he gets his reporting done here soon. They're like all bad. Okay. And the least bad one is perhaps there is a correlation between where flu is the weakest, COVID ravages and rages the most, because there's a lot of dry timber there if you start a fire, if you know what I'm trying to say. All right, the ground is more fertile there. That's a possibility. But then I would presume we would study such correlations, because shouldn't the goal of encountering a pandemic be how do we get out of it and defeat it, as opposed to how do we just live in it and manage it forever? Shouldn't the former be the goal of what we call healthcare? Now, if you're doing sick care, which is what our current economic model is, we don't do healthcare. That's why vitamin C and D, what is it?
Same thing as flu. Doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. It serves no purpose at all. Only thing that serves purpose is something from Big Pharma. That comes with a 30-second commercial with a 27-second disclaimer, including symptoms that may be the ones you're actually trying to medicate against. That's the only thing we permit. So we do sick care, not health care. If you had a healthcare system, the goal would be how do we defeat this pandemic with all of our ingenuity, and or how do we get ourselves out of it to make it as manageable as possible for society to go on. That's what Scott Atlas is doing right now. Healthcare. Sick care is how do we extend this for as long as we can, make as much money off of it as we possibly can, and just treat people as vats of symptoms that need to be managed, as opposed to humans that need to be healed. We do the latter today.
And we have been for a long time, which is why they could pull this on us.
That's exactly
We are at the bottom of the slippery slope.
Yeah, this didn't start here. No, this is the culmination of everything that's gone on. Okay. Nothing is quite pegged the difference between progressives and conservatives, like the RBG and Trump situations. Within a week, RBG goes into hospital. Conservatives send her well wishes in the hopes of the preservation of life. Trump gets COVID. The left cheers and roots for Trump to die to further their agenda. Nothing could paint a clear distinction between progressive ideologies and conservative principles. From Ken Rickard, a Christian conservative science teacher in California, who is constantly trying to battle the dark forces of ignorance in and out of my classroom daily. That's well said, but I got to tell you too, I think a lot of conservative well wishes for RBG is just flat out virtue signaling. Okay, not that people were like sitting around hoping that she would perish to fill her seat. But some of that is driven by the conservative version of virtue signaling to show that we are superior and better than leftists in a different way. That will show it with killing people with kindness and heaping hot coals on their head. It just may not be done from the most righteous premise. You know what I'm trying to say?
I do.
Yeah. It's to earn some recognition the other way. Yeah.
It's our obligation to try to plant our flag and hope if we can.
Sure.
The one thing I do know about her that allows that, at least in my own mind and heart, is the relationship she had with Scalia. Because I don't think Scalia suffered fools. And I think
I liked the woman. I thought she didn't suffer fools. I didn't think she suffered BS on any level. I just disagreed with her about 80% of the time, vehemently.
Yes.
But on a personal level, I didn't disdain her or anything of that nature. I respected her. I liked her.
Yeah, and so she clearly did not need to hate everyone around her like almost all the people who now have deified her do. And that's a fundamental difference between them.
That's very well said. Yep. Mike Dubois says, you spoke of undecided voters as those who are trying to decide whether to give the country back to Trump for 4 more years or over to Biden. And such voters didn't get much out of that first debate. And they seemed focused on behavior, not policy. Yet pre-outbreak, Trump's chances for re-election were excellent given the economic growth. Now that the response to the virus has tanked the economy and put people out of work, his chances seem to be lower. Doesn't this indicate that it cannot largely be about Trump's temperament and behavior? In January on your show, you three agreed that while there's a floor by which losing Dem presidential candidates cannot fall, like they can't lose California, New York, etc., we could see, potentially a Trump flipping a Virginia if he had a strong year, a Minnesota, a Colorado. Now, Republicans have won Colorado numerous times in recent years, but I get what you're saying. Wouldn't that mean that Trump's struggles are mostly about the economy and not attitude? In other words, these same voters were fine with his attitude when the economy was roaring. I agree. You've actually just restated one of my key premises. When elections are about personalities, Democrats win. When they're about issues, Republicans win. Trump wasn't less douchey to the people that don't like him now a year ago or March 9th. It's just we had the largest family median wage growth since 1968. We had the largest economic growth since the dot-com boom. We had the highest percentage of people in the private labor workforce since we've been keeping the stat. And we had the lowest amount of Hispanic and Black unemployment since we've been keeping the stats. So, yeah, I wouldn't invite him over for dinner. But hey, appreciate the fact my life's going well. Then when you take those things away, then suddenly that objection becomes more of a primary objective, more of a primary component. I completely agree with that. I think you're just kind of restating what much of my analysis has been this year. That's why I don't believe Trump can win if the election is about how bad is the virus, as opposed to how quickly can we recover. That's why if he loses, it's going to be because he surrendered his presidency to the quack duo of Fauci-Birx. Now don't have Thanksgiving. I got to tell you, I just struggle not to hate these people. Because I just think they're fiends. Like, not wrong, not misguided. You know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's a malevolent force. Yeah. Everything I just said about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, on a personal level, I respected her. I thought she was fairly intellectually honest. I just disagreed with her vehemently. I have none of that for Birx and especially for Fauci. I mean, I smell sulfur over my screen when he shows up on it. Okay.
Or when we're talking about Jack, that's what I mean. We're being Fauci'd at every level.
I know I'm talking to something that is obviously, at the very least, disingenuous to the freaking core of their soul, if not openly given over to malevolence. There's wrong and then there's malevolence. There's wrong and then there's disingenuous to the core. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah. That's what I feel like we're dealing with these people, particularly Fauci. And that's where I just struggle just to not loathe them on a biblical level. Because it just seems like this is coming from the other place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can be coming from a bad place. We all come from a bad place. That's why we all need a savior. Or you can come from the other place. You know what I mean? There's the bad place we all come from because we're all basically bad. But then there's the other place. And I kind of feel like they come from there.
Yeah.
Because they can't be shown anything. Would Anthony Fauci be friends with Antonin Scalia?
No.
Hell no. No.
Well, this is
why there would be no, respectful, co-belligerent, intellectual. I respect you in the arena as a competitor. Now, don't get me wrong. When we break to write our opinions, I'm going to try to rip your spleen out because I think you're dead wrong. But I respect you on a human level.
That's why
that's not what's happening here. That's why Sweden's memory hold, T-cell memory, immunity's memory hold. That's why I'm getting fact-checked from Facebook for a claim I never even made in order to demonetize my page, right?
Yeah.
That's not a bad place. That's the other place.
That's why I predicted that Fauci is going to quit. Because he always, and I said this, he always kept Trump close in this thing. We know he's a Hillary fan. We know that, which he's allowed to be a political fan of anybody he wants to. But I think this whole time was a scam about, just whispering in Trump's ear. And he knows that works with Donald Trump. And now all of a sudden, Trump is re-racking the very things Fauci said about Trump doing a good job. And that makes him mad. It's because of what you're talking about. This was never real. It was always a scam.
Yeah, you're right. So let me whisper sweet nothings, tell Trump how great he is in order to get close to him because that's what he wants to hear. He'll let me wield power. And then when I say those things about Trump, on like the gaslighting that Fauci tried to do to Mark Levin last week, because they're using the Levin interview in their campaign ads. And that's taken totally out of context. And Levin's like, dude, I did the interview. I know I'm the one that asked the damn question. I know what the context is. But I know what it is. I looked you right in the eye. I know where I was coming from and you answered it. What do you mean it's out of context?
But this is what you mean about progressivism. You can't. It's two men enter, one man leave.
Yep.
He did what progressives demand you do. Trump trusted the experts over and over and over again. And now but it's not good enough because it was always a scam. So now they're still going to crucify him, including the head expert, for trusting him when he re-racks that relationship.
See, this is the mistake we made with Trump if he loses. It's not the idea that somebody has to have perfect moral behavior or even ideal moral behavior, because none of us do. We all have a red light district in our minds. We all have a red light district in our own lives somewhere. Somewhere. We all have red in our ledger. That's why we all need a savior. That's not to excuse all this behavior, but it's the idea that we are looking for a moral standard that no one can uphold. Okay? So great, Mitt Romney stayed married to the same woman for how many years? He also, if you would have elected him, would have shown them where you all live and let them run over you. He has shown that as a senator, has he not?
Yes.
Yeah. No, which we focus so much on the morality, we didn't look at the worldview. Because we're going to need smart people with a deeply embedded worldview who can push back on the BS of these so-called experts with their next faux crisis. And not just, we got to trust these people. No, why? Why do we have to trust them? Why? Maybe we do. I'm not saying we don't. But I've got some questions that need to be answered before we do. And that is the weakness of Donald Trump more than anything else. It's not his ego. Yes, it causes people to get annoyed with him. It's also driven him to tremendous areas of success in his life at the same time. The weakness of his presidency is that he lacks a fundamental sound worldview that allows him to then put things and events on this earth in their proper context, as opposed to just treating them as random occurrences all the time and then reacting to them randomly.
Yes.
The whole expert class is against us. The next go around, we need someone with a worldview. that knows how to challenge these people and force them to defend their own assertions rather than just either dismissing them or taking them whole cloth one way or the other. That's going to do it for us this week. Back at it again on Monday. Until then, John 3:17.